law enforcement began to piece together the events leading up to that night. While many aspects of the crime were shocking, there were some elements that helped investigators build a case. The police had eyewitness testimony from Wayok Chin, the only survivor, and they quickly turned to forensic evidence, hoping to find something that could link the gunman to the crime. In the days following the massacre, police received a significant tip from an informant who claimed that two men, Kwan Fei Willie Mak and Benjamin Eng, were responsible for the killings. Both men were well known in Seattle's Chinese-American community, and their involvement in the Chinatown underground scene had raised suspicions long before the massacre. Mak and Eng were both members of a local criminal group known for operating illegal gambling establishments. Mak had a reputation as a tough and ruthless figure, while Eng had a more reserved and quieter demeanor. However, both were deeply involved in organized crime, and their connections to the Wami Club were well documented. As the investigation deepened, it became clear that the massacre was not a random act of violence, but the result of a meticulously planned robbery. The men had intended to steal money from the club's vault, but the situation had escalated, leading to the execution of everyone inside. In the weeks following the crime, police began to zero in on Ong over Benjamin Ong had been acting suspiciously in the days after the massacre, and his relationship with Mak became a focal point of the investigation. Detectives discovered that Eng had left Seattle immediately after the killings and had traveled to California. This raised red flags, and authorities soon put out a nationwide alert for his arrest. Kwan Fa Willie Mak, on the other hand, remained in Seattle, attempting to cover his tracks. He had even gone so far as to attempt to destroy evidence linking him to the massacre, but investigators were hot on his trail. As more evidence was gathered, including ballistics reports linking the gun used in the crime to Mak and Ung, the authorities were able to build a case strong enough to arrest both men. On March 22nd, 1983, nearly 2 months after the massacre, Benjamin Ong was apprehended in California and brought back to Seattle to stand trial. Kwan Fa Willie Mak was arrested shortly thereafter. The arrests of the two men brought a sense of relief to the victims' families and the community, but the case was far from over. As the trial date approached, the prosecution would have to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that both men were responsible for the killings. However, the evidence against them was mounting, and it seemed increasingly likely that justice would be served